Are you ever wondering, what is the main thing that differentiates the guitar from most other instruments like the piano or horns or other non-fretted instruments? I've got an answer for you. The guitar uses consistent shapes that are movable around the fretboard. Now, there's just a number of overarching shapes that are used again and again and act as a visual guide to help us see and learn the instrument in a way that doesn't apply as much to other instruments. So in this video, I'm going to be talking all about the shape and form of the most basic chord shapes on the guitar that act as a jumping off point to then go deeper into the guitar with a more unifying and understanding approach of how the guitar is oriented and designed. Now, you could think of this as a precursor to systems like the cage system or other organizational systems of the guitar. Now, things that will greatly enhance this type of study is, of course, always learning the notes of the fretboard. We've got some great videos on that on Guitar Tricks YouTube. And also just a basic understanding of the major scale and how chords and harmony work. Now, as usual, to find more in-depth lessons on not only fretboard theory, but complete beginner to advanced guitar learning, make sure and click on the link in the description below for a free ultimate beginner guide that includes an essential chord chart, a practice plan, a walkthrough of some beginner pitfalls to avoid, plus a whole lot more. Okay, so for now, we're gonna jump into some of our most basic shapes on the guitar. We're gonna kind of do a general breakdown of them and see how they work mostly visually. When I say visually, we're not thinking too much about theory. We're gonna get into that just a little bit, but mainly I'm thinking about visual identity. And that's just how the chord looks to you. Now, this is kind of up to interpretation, so I'm gonna give you a guide on how I see chords visually, but really it's up to you to how you see them. So I'm gonna walk through our major caged shapes, which just means the C, A, G, E, and D chords, the major chords in open position, and we're gonna find some stuff. So let's start with the C chord. Now, the thing about this chord, we're playing 5 strings down from the A string, and it's rooted, the chord's root, meaning the lowest note, and where the chord gets its name, is on the A string, 3rd fret, right where my ring finger is right here. Now, that's a huge thing that we want to remember when we're learning chord shapes. The root is everything. Okay, so on this C chord, 3rd fret of the A string, there it is. Now, as we go through these shapes, one thing I want you to be aware of is the open strings within the chord, and also that these open strings really happen behind the nut. But as we're visualizing this 3rd fret root, I also want you to think, okay, this is 3 frets away from open, and open is really behind the nut, not on the nut, not 1st fret, behind it. Okay, so back to our shape, C chord here. Now, the fretted fingers, I see them as making a diagonal line to each other in regards to where the neck is. That's just how I see it. So that's one way that I remembered this shape. Okay, the C shape makes that diagonal line. Now, the other thing I want to point out, again, those open strings with this shape, we have open G and open high E. And again, we're visualizing those as behind the nut, as opposed to not on the 1st fret, not on the nut, but behind them. Okay, let's keep going. Let's look at our A shape. Now, a lot of times we fret this with just one finger, index, middle, ring, sometimes the middle, ring, and pinky. Regardless, this open A shape here and A chord, it's got an open A root, so 5th string there. And then I see this as really a perpendicular line going across the fretboard. On the D, G, B strings, that's the notes that are fretted, regardless of how you're fretting them. It also goes right in a line with the frets. So visually, that's how I'm seeing that one. It's pretty simple. And then as far as open strings go, we also have, along with the open root A, we have an open high E. So if you're playing these 3 fingers, a lot of times we're getting that in there. And again, we want to visualize that behind the nut. Okay, let's keep going. Let's take a look at our G shape here. Now this one is played on all 6 strings, so that's a big thing that you want to remember. Now it's rooted on the low E string, 3rd fret. There's lots of ways we can play G, but right now I'm kind of holding it in a typical way here with 3 fingers, middle, index, and ring. Now this is a hard one for me to come up with a general shape, but the way I kind of like to see it is a sideways cup. It sort of looks like a cup that's poured over sideways. As far as open strings go, we've got open D, G, and B. And again, we're thinking of those as behind the nut over here. Okay, we've got a open E shape. This is also 6 strings. We've got our root here on low E, and that's open. And then this shape, kind of far out there, but you can kind of think of it as a sideways mountain, or like, I kind of see it as a dog snout. And then for open strings, we've also got open B and open high E. Finally, our D shape here. Now, a big part of the D shape is it's only played on 4 strings. It's rooted on the open D. So we're thinking of that back here on the open D string. And again, this is going to be important for later. And then I see this as a half diamond shape. Now, if you're familiar with D7, it's kind of the opposite. It's also a half diamond shape, but sort of pointed the other direction. It's kind of pointed that way. Regular D, I see it as pointed this way. And then for open strings, it's just got that open D. Now, if you're enjoying this video, please like it, give it a quick subscribe. Also check the link in the description for a free trial of Guitar Tricks. Now, once we're comfortable with these open chord shapes, or really any open chord shape, this could be the case for minor chords, the next thing that gets overlooked is really understanding how the chord works and what the functions are of the notes in the chord. Now, a little bit of music theory here. A chord is made up of a triad. A triad is just 3 notes. And those 3 notes, we call them the root, the 3rd, and the 5th. The root is the lowest note of the chord pitch-wise. The 3rd is just up a 3rd interval. It's the most distinctive note in that it makes it major or minor. And then the 5th is a 3rd up from there, kind of filling out the chord. It's a very transparent interval in the chord, but it's necessary. We keep it in. Now, the thing with these open chord shapes that get overlooked is that these chord shapes are made up of these types of notes, and sometimes they're doubled. Sometimes they're even tripled. You'll notice as we walked through those chords, some of them were 5 strings, some of them were 4, and some of them were 6. That's why they're doubled. It's just a 3-note chord, but to fill out on all the strings, we have to double some of the notes. So let's walk through them quickly and see what's going on, because they're all designed a little bit differently. Starting with our C chord, we've got our root, which is the C note. It's the name of the chord, followed by the 3rd. That's the distinctive major or minor interval. Major, minor. After that, we've got the 5th. So we've got root, 3rd, 5th right there. That's what a triad is in its full form. If we keep going on the B string, we have another root. So this is another C note, an octave up. So if I play them together, that's what an octave is. And then if we finish it out on the high E string, we have another 3rd interval. So this particular shape, which again is a movable shape, meaning we can move it up the neck, and if we remember these functions, we get root, 3rd, 5th, root, 3rd. So we've got 2 roots, an octave, and we've got 2 3rds in this shape. and 1/5. Now you may be wondering, why do we need to know this? Now it's totally fine to just learn shapes, strum along, but it's great to know the functions so that we can start manipulating the shape. And it's also a great basis to know these shapes because all other chords that we learn kind of stem back to these shapes. We move them up, we break them up into little pieces, we alter them, we manipulate them. Now, a lot of times people go and buy these chord books with thousands of chords, and it's confusing because there's no way to keep all these chords in your head. But when you know that they all come from just a few shapes, it's much easier to keep it all together. Okay, let's keep going. We've got our A shape. Now this one is oriented a little different. We've got root, we've got a 5th, which is a power chord. We've got another root, which is a 3-string power chord. We've got the 3rd interval on the B string. Remember, that's the major or minor interval, major, minor, and then followed by another 5th. So A chord is root, 5th, root, 3rd, major 3rd, in this case, 5th. Onward to our G chord. For this one, we've got the triad, root, 3rd, 5th. We've got another root. We've got another 3rd and another root. Because we got 6 strings, we got to fill it out, right? So in this case, we have 3 roots. We've got 2 thirds, and we've got 1/5. Okay, we've got our E shape. This one is more similar to our A shape, but let's check it out. We've got root, we've got 5th, we've got another root, so we've got that power chord thing happening. We've got a 3rd, major, minor. We've got another 5th, and we've got another root. So it's 6 strings. Again, we've got 3 roots. We've got 2 5ths, and we've got a 3rd. And then finally our D shape. This one is root, 5th, so a little power chord. We've got another root, octave up, also power chord, and then just a 3rd. So this one's root, 5th, root, 3rd. And if it's minor, we got to switch it around a little, but it's still mostly the same shape. All right, now we've got these shapes down. We know what's happening inside these shapes, the interworkings of the functions and the notes and everything. Now the next step, and this can take a while, this is a process, so don't worry. We want to be able to recognize how to move these shapes up the neck and or visualize other shapes we know and understand how they relate to one of these 5 shapes. So the goal here is to unite the silly shapes that we came up with, the diagonal line, the parallel line, the, what was this, the half cup, the wolf snout, sorry, the dog snout, and then half diamond. When we take these shapes up, there's one there. Sometimes they're smaller little pieces, like maybe it's this, that's just part of the C shape. Maybe it's a little piece of the G shape, which is kind of looks like this. You take it up, there's one there. There's all of these shapes that relate back to them. Now the struggle with newer players is there's always a disconnect between the open strings, visualizing the notes of the open strings with the shape, and it's just because it's all new. It's because you haven't taken these shapes up and you don't see that there's notes behind the nut. That's the hardest thing. So that's why I'm really stressing the visualizing of the shapes. When you're learning them in open position, also see the notes behind the nut. And then there's a few other things that we can do to sort of make it easier. Now, one thing is to practice this with a capo. So let's take our C shape, for example. Now, this one is a tough one to take up. Now, say I wanted to take this from C to C sharp. I slide this shape up, I play it, doesn't sound good because of the open strings, right? Now, if I was to take this shape up right here, and then I was to put a capo on it, clamp it down, it's probably not gonna sound too good, but it sounds better. Let me just adjust it. It sounds better, right? Same fingering, we moved up the note where the capo is. Those are the notes. It's acting as a finger for us, or it's acting as a nut, but really this fret here is kind of the nut. This is holding the strings down. So we can do this. Let's try taking the shape up even more, and let's put the capo on there, right behind it. This is a great thing to practice. But remember, we take the capo off, it's not gonna be right. So this is why if you really want to take the shape up, you have to rearrange your fingers. So I'm using 1, 2, and 3. I have to change it to 2, 3, and 4. And this index has to be our capo. This is where we get bar chords from. Slide this shape up. I'm going to take it to 5th position. It's a tough shape. This is why it's a hard thing to do. This is why the guitar is hard. Now, I've been playing this shape for years, so I can do it, but I could not do this right off the bat when I started studying this stuff. So one thing you can do, try that with a capo, put it on, make the shape, see if you need to add your finger. Let's try a G shape here. So I'll put this on capo 3. Now this is our normal G shape, but if I take this capo off, it's not gonna work. So I need to figure out, okay, index is gonna take these notes. What could I do? Oh, I could do my pinky there. And we could do D string down. Let's try that. Remove the capo, put your finger where the capo was, and that works. That's a little shape that works. Okay, so a lot of these are gonna be little pieces of chord shapes that you need to relate back to the open chord. So again, this takes a lot of work, but we're aiming for keeping the shape intact visually, seeing the bigger shape, and the more songs you learn, the more riffs you learn, you're gonna start seeing these shapes as bigger pieces. All right, now where is this all going? So from here, you build on these 5 core shapes, the C, A, G, E, and D shapes. Learning how to move them up the neck, you learn bar shapes from these chord shapes, and then you start making them minor. You start manipulating and changing the functions, the root, the 3rd, the 5th, mostly the 3rd, sometimes the 5th. Root's always gonna stay the same. And then you break them up into smaller pieces. All of these are smaller triads within the bigger shape that you can find. You can start building scales and arpeggios, and everything is sort of linked together rather than it being very disconnected, a scale here, an arpeggio there, that doesn't relate to anything. Okay, thanks for watching this video. Make sure and click on the link to grab your free beginner guide here at the end of this video. Have a good one, and we'll see you later.